Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the How Did I Get Here podcast. I'm your host, Ryan Poley. Lots going on with the show these days. We have a star-studded lineup that we're super pumped about. Some housekeeping notes. Please make sure that you download the latest shows on Spotify and on our YouTube channel, the How Did I Get Here podcast. All of that helps out with our algorithm and makes it super easy for Preston to find us some really cool sponsors. Thank you for all the support, all the messages, and all the well wishes. We're going to keep doing it because we're having a lot of fun with it. So let's get right into it. Up next on the podcast, we have LeeAnn Cherry from Bear Creek Farms. If you're not familiar with Bear Creek Farms, it's arguably some of the best beef in America. Not only do they have a great product, but they're amazing people. She runs the farm with her husband, Bill, who's third generation rancher in Nashville. And she is just a little ball of energy, and we really love talking to her. LeeAnn Cherry from Bear Creek Farms, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you, Ryan Poley, for having me.
I would say that you have arguably the best beef in America, but I have a biased opinion because we're friends.
Yeah.
But I want to talk to you about how you met your husband, Bill, and what you were doing before you became a rancher?
A farmer.
Rancher?
I know in the South, they usually call us farmers. Mm-hmm. In the West, Midwest, it's a rancher. Yeah. If you're livestock, it's a rancher.
In Texas, you're a rancher.
Yeah, Texas, you're
we'd be cowboy.
Cowboy. Yeah. That is Bill. He is cowboy.
Bill is a cowboy.
But they do call it farmers here. So I kind of like ranch. We ought to try to bring that back.
Yeah.
So let's see how I met Bill. So Bill and I met. We knew each other when our oldest children played soccer together in high school. We were both, married to other people at the time, but we knew each other and saw each other at games and such. Fast forward many years. When we were both divorced, I actually ran into him at a bar. I wasn't sure whether to tell that story, but everybody knows it. And he came up to me. He's like, I know you. And I said, well, I'm Paige's mom. Because, at that point, you're always somebody's mom.
Someone's mom, yeah. Right,
that's your identity.
Or you only recognize them at soccer or at school boards or at somewhere. Yeah,
yes.
When you take it out of context, like sometimes when I see different chefs on the street and they're not in their chef jacket, I'm like, I don't know who that is.
Yeah, same. And it's like, oh, I know you. Mm-hmm. So yes, I wasn't at the school, the private school they went to. I was at a dive bar, so it was a different different setting.
You should have just been like, no, I'm not that person. I know who you are.
And so we just kind of talked and caught up and chatted, and then swapped numbers. Mm-hmm. And a couple of days later, gave me a call, and we just started hanging out, and it was so easy. He's just fantastic. And I know my daughter, who, she was like, Mom, it's just so really nice to see you with somebody that you can be yourself with. I know you're going, what? But when you're young, you've been there probably.
I'm not. I've finally reached the point after 45 years of dating, hard dating, toxic relationships, me being the toxic person in your relationship.
Same,
you go through these things and you have to try different things out and see what you like and see what you don't like, and everything sets you up for the next. But when you do meet that person and you're like a month, 2 months into it, and you're like, okay, there's no real red flags. There's nothing out of the ordinary. Okay, like their chewing bothers me, but I'm not going to kill them. Like, there's no real problems happening. And then you get into 6-7 months later after the honeymoon phase, and you're like, this is not only going well, this is getting better. So I know exactly what you talk about when you say that it's just easy. Yeah. And like dating a partner, it should be easy, right?
It should be, yeah.
So it was easy for you guys.
It was easy. It was comfortable. He's so authentic, and
he is.
And for whatever reason, kind of loves me for who I am. So that was great. Mm-hmm. I mean, it didn't take long once we started dating to know this was something special.
And it was your second go around.
Yeah.
So you had a lot of...
You're better after a couple strikes.
You had a lot of data,
Yes. Yeah. I know some things that didn't work.
Right.
And worked hard on, like you said, the toxic relationships. You hard to get through life without something like that.
It's all lessons, right?
Yeah. So we were both at a pretty good place. Uh-huh. And then it was, blending a family. I have 2 bonus children, and I have 3 children. Mm-hmm. Kathleen and Bo they were older and were out of the house pretty much. Bo was in college. Mm-hmm. He'd come home on summers and hang out with his mom some, hang out with us some. And then my youngest boys, that we lived in a subdivision, right? Like house.
Yeah.
And Bill, that wasn't going to work for him. And he immediately started getting the guys, dirt bikes and exposing them to the farm. And when we spoke
So
with
he
him,
had the farm.
yeah,
Yes.
So I fell in love with a farmer. That's how I got into farming.
Yeah.
And the boys fell in love with the farm as well, and the farmer. And so we talked to him. Would you like to stay here at the subdivision, or do you want to move to the farm? Yeah, they loved it.
Big choices.
Yeah, it was a big choice because they were, 11. I'm in fourth grade.
Yeah.
So we go, moved to the farm. And before the second part of your question, before I met Bill, so my background was in marketing, advertising.
Marketing and advertising, yeah.
But prior to that, air sales, radio sales. That was fun.
Yeah.
Those long martini lunches. That was
They
back
don't
in
do
the
those
90s.
anymore.
No,
There's no way they do
don't.
it. It's like very Mad
I hope
Men.
they don't.
It's like very
Mad Men. Yeah. It was.
Yeah.
Learned a lot.
So what was going on the farm before you came on board?
So good question. So, but my father-in-law, Poppy, Mr. Cherry, he and Bill ran a cow-calf operation, the conventional farming, pretty much. So they would raise the calves, wean them, background them, pretty much make sure they're healthy. Then the semi trucks would come, load them up, take them out west, with the exception of a few beef calves that we would save to raise out for our family.
Yeah.
So Bill and I we were talking, we really wanted to start a more sustainable family farm, right? Like sell beef from the farm.
So you weren't doing any slaughtering on your own?
No.
It was just you raise the cattle and ship them off. Let's remember that. We're going to go on a side mission here.
Okay, let's go.
Okay. Yellowstone.
Yes.
I've learned a lot about what you do through Yellowstone, and I want to know, is it accurate? First of all, do you watch it?
You love it.
Okay, great.
Yeah, love it.
Yeah.
It's great. It's so well written. And the character development, I mean, come on, Beth.
Yeah. Beth is, what a train wreck of a person.
I know. Rip's easy on the eyes.
Rip is great, man. Yeah.
Kevin, it's great.
Yeah, so what prompted me to that is like, last season they were shipping off their cattle because they had some sort of weed or some sort of
so we've
pest.
been through that.
Yeah. So the show's accurate.
The show's accurate. It tells how quickly you have to adapt.
Yeah.
Of course, you're in the same type. You're in a similar business. Like, if your fish doesn't come in, you can't just close it. You got to figure it out.
Right.
Notice I said fish because you always get your beef.
Thank you. I know where to get my beef from. So one of the things that prompted me for that question was in Yellowstone, they were saying like we need to start slaughtering and selling meat. That was
interesting. Yeah.
Right. And the Kevin Costner character, he was saying there's no money in it. People have tried it before. We can't do it. And Beth is like, this is the only way for our future.
Yeah.
In your world now, with what you just said, is Bill and his father were shipping the beef away, and you came on board and you said, okay, we need to start figuring out a more sustainable way to do this.
Correct.
Is that when the conversation of we need to like have our own slaughterhouse and start selling beef? How does that conversation work into?
So first what happened was...
It's a big undertaking.
It is a big undertaking. And what happened that kind of catapulted Bill and I going, okay, now we're in. We have to do this, is we had a drought in 2008.
Right.
And the whole herd was sold.
Yeah.
We were coming back in our camper with our kids, and a farmer called Bill, one of his buddies that has livestock, and said, hey, I know your dad's got... I was just calling to see if you had any more of your mama cows, because I know you're selling everything. And Bill's like, no, we're not selling it. What's going on? I mean, we knew we were having water issues before he left, but he had Poppy had to sell everything. He had to make the call, and he was a brilliant businessman. And when it gets down to the basic water, we had to get rid of them. He had to sell them because otherwise they wouldn't have made it.
Yeah.
And
at that moment, that's when you realized you need to get fresh water, irrigation.
Yep, we did the irrigation.
That's when the pivot happened.
Right,
okay.
Yeah. So it went from talking and planning to, well, this is real.
We have to do
because
it,
now we have to do it.
You
Because
think
not
that was
farming
the push? That was the push?
Yeah. Because we may have talked about it a little bit more. We were going to buy a couple cattle, steers from his dad.
A year goes by.
Sell one for you, sell one to Elliot, kind of do a little market. And get your toe wet.
Yeah.
But no, this was like all in.
Okay.
So we did the watering, irrigated the farms. Before we were just filling up the water tank in the pickup truck and put it in the trough.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And in the winter, break the ice with our feet or
Wow.
axe or whatever. It was really cold. And not having a farming background, it's like, oh, this is just what we do. It seemed difficult, but everything seemed difficult. I'm not even opening a gate is difficult. Like, why can't we have like gates that open?
Push a button.
Yeah. I mean, not even that, just like easily open. It was, they're made out of a limb and a tree and twine. And so we did the watering. That was a godsend, and that was great. So we won't run out of water.
Was that the first game changer?
That was the first game changer. And then he contacted some of the farmers that bought the Poppy's mama cows, their herd, and we got, half a dozen, maybe 12, 13 back. Then he went to some auctions, dialed in some of the genetics, similar genetics of what they had. They had built that herd over 20 years. So having to get rid of everything, I was worried too about Bill. We're coming back with, we have to drive a school bus. I mean, what's going on? Right. What are we going to do? But that was never a question. We're going to continue. So that gave birth to Bear Creek Farm. So that, a tragedy happens and you try to make, it catapulted us to do the dream, to do it. We got some of our the mama cows back. And I think the first year we had like 15 head of cattle.
And what do you have now?
800.
Jesus. Wow.
Yeah.
So it truly is a mom and pop shop.
It is a mom and pop and our kids.
Yeah.
It is a family and my husband's family.
Yeah.
It's definitely, they may not be hands-on with the farming, but if we lease the farm for my sister-in-law, if you have land in our family, we're going to put some animals on it.
Yeah.
You're going to have something.
We're
going to be growing food on
I love going to the Franklin Market, and sometimes there's a line,
great.
and I stand in there and I see like, Grant Alex like working the room. They're so good. And it's just like you just get up there and you're just like, I just want to buy beef from you.
Yeah.
And they're so nice.
It's been great because we have there's the processing plant. And I'm kind of jumping ahead probably, but that was when you're talking about the watering system, huge. And then just go pull in the plug. Let's do it.
Yeah.
You're probably going through that. You just do it.
So what does it take to put a processing plant? And is it on your land or is it somewhere else?
It is not. So it was in our 5-year plan. We knew to do what we wanted to do. We wanted to control the ending.
Yeah.
We wanted our own USDA processing plant. So we met with the city planners in Thompson Station, and it was pretty much a no, because we're in Williamson County and we were going to have to build like $1 million water treatment plant. I mean, it was going to be
There's so many rules and laws.
So many rules.
I couldn't even imagine. I mean, we go through it at the restaurant.
Oh
with
my
like the health
gosh.
department. I couldn't even imagine what it's like dealing with the USDA for a processing plant.
It's a new one.
Yeah.
So
HACCP plans all over for everything.
Yeah. And we wanted, I talked about doing like a cafe on the farm, and I was going to use.
Forget that.
Right. Oh, lofty goals. And we were going to be so, use the blood. We were going to water, use it on the garden. And by the time I was telling them that, I felt like a kick in my shin. It was Bill. He's like, I think you lost him.
So did you,
So we knew we could, but where we were processing we knew that place was going to be available.
But with your goal, so now at this point you're like, hey, we want to open a processing plant. We want to have a cafe. We want to have this. We want to have, carnival, whatever else you guys
we
are
did
deciding.
The carnival.
So did you not understand what it took to have a processing plant?
We did not.
Yeah.
Of course.
We
did until we bought one.
Right.
It was just like with farming. Like the 3 years that we had Bear Creek Farm for 3 years, we did like 4 farmers markets. I wasn't even in Nashville or Franklin farmers market at that time. It was just a neighborhood, Woodbine, Leipers Fork, Thompson Station, wherever I could go.
Yeah.
And we would be able to sell the steaks. They would, families would get, because you get, 12 ribeyes off a side. We get 200 pounds of ground beef. So we were quickly building up an inventory of ground beef. And so one day we're like, hey, let's cook at Bonnaroo. The kids love music.
Jesus Christ.
Right?
It's like a full-on business.
So we bought a catering trailer And I superimposed our logo on. We had our logo on it by the time we got there, but we had to apply to Bonnaroo. And, and like, this is what we have. This is what we've done. We've cooked 200 burgers for people. And then we went and cooked 80,000, sorry. So that's the kind of, we had this ground beef, and we were working with restaurants. So when you brought up carnival, I actually cooked at the Williamson County Fair.
Yeah.
We did carnivals. We did
Bonnaroo. That's the way to do it. Like, that's like
it was
as
so charming.
grassroots as you can get,
Yep. And because I would look, at the time we had twin 13-year-old boys, a 24-year-old daughter, 27-year-old daughter, and, 25. Yeah, I can't keep up with all their ages. And they're all working 20 hours a day, not complaining, just rolling up their sleeves, doing.
Just having a great time.
And I thought about the memories that we're building with them. Like, how cool. Your parents did what?
Right.
Bonnaroo?
Yeah.
And they have stories they can tell you
sure
theirs
they
privately.
Do. Yeah. So you get what happened? So where did you move the processing plant?
So the processing plant,
Williamson County said.
It said, no, I don't think
rocks.
this is going to work, because we have one neighbor that can complain, and it's a no. And you've gone through all this.
Right.
So we were currently processing in Chapel Hill, Tennessee, at a processing plant, very small processing plant. And we knew the owner that owned the dirt, that owned the land, and we started making a deal with him.
Now you're saying, like, you're processing with him, so basically he's taking all the risk of.
Yeah, we just bring
you
our
just drop
cattle.
the stuff off and pick it back up, and you pay
right.
him X amount of dollars.
That's right.
Okay. Yeah.
That's right. And that's what we were doing. I would go to Lexington some when I knew we wanted to buy a plant, and I started looking at some other ones just to see their process and how they did things. So I would go to different processing plants. Take the cattle. I would stay there though when they cut them. And then come back and pick them up. And the Chapel Hill, they
is that a thing where they would switch your beef out?
I hate to use the word controlling.
Yeah.
But when it's your animal,
right.
it was like it's a big deal. We harvest an animal for you.
Yeah.
And I didn't know who these butchers were. And actually accidents happened while I was there. One guy had our tenderloin. I needed a whole for like a dinner somebody was doing. And I turned my back, and he had cut it into medallions. Oh, Jesus Christ. And it's like, that's what I said, kind of.
Yeah, right, sort of.
And I was like, how the hell did this happen? And so, you can't, at that point, with beef, less is more when you're taking it to a chef, because.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah, I want all the fat. And
you want, what to do. You can cook the bones. You can render the fat.
Yeah.
You can make your ground. So, we were really excited when we ended up getting that. We had a little bit of there was someone else making a play for it, but we were able to get that processing plant in Chapel Hill, and that changed the trajectory of our farm for sure.
Did you? It was a bigger undertaking than you thought. Did you get the plant and start working in it? And now I'm only asking that because. As a chef, you run a kitchen, you manage a kitchen, you manage costs, and eventually you're like, oh, I can run a restaurant. And then when I started going through the process, I had no idea that there were all these other things I had to deal with. I sort of kind of knew, but there's still to this day, there's things that are like popping up, like, oh, fuck, we need internet. Oh, that's right. Like, oh, Jesus, we need a sound system. Like, all these little things that are just there that I don't think about.
In systems that had to be put in place. Like, what do you mean we ran out of bags? Who ordered bags?
Right.
Yeah, it was the same thing. Like the farm, when we started Bear Creek Farm, all that learning curve of, we had to move, like it's the puzzle of the beef. Who's going to take the culotte? Who's going to take the burger? Who's going to take the strips? Yeah. And then the processing plant, and our daughter was 27 years old. Paige. She had been she had been a police officer. And I worked part-time at the farm. And she had worked full-time at the farm too, but then went to law enforcement. And when we bought the processing plant, I said, do you want to stay on the farm? Because that time she was segueing out of law enforcement. Do you want to stay at the farm full time, or do you want to run the plant? And I'll do whichever one you don't want. And she said, I'll run the plant. And she had that opportunity. Now, whether she would call it an opportunity at the time. So, really, that's how we've done our kids. It's like, when you hear about it, you just throw them in the pool, swim.
Right.
Right. Here's a processing
videos
plant.
Where they just chuck a newborn baby and they just kind of float.
Yeah. So we throw her into it, and she didn't really manage people, and that was the big thing, like the labor. We didn't, right at the farm, it's our family. Yeah. There, it's not. And that took a while.
It's so hard managing people.
Oh my gosh. And finding the right people
Right.
and building what we now have is a fantastic, but it took time and it took heartache and, it was tough.
Yeah.
But we have like such a great team that it feels like family. But then, there's that, it's different when you work, when, if you want to yell at your mom versus like now I'm your boss right now.
Right.
So, but that took a while to build, because we the employees at the processing plant we kept, and there's still a few, the great, like, Diego and Antonelle, they work for us and they started with us and they're fantastic. They are family. And I feel really, honored, that we have an opportunity to provide livings for people. Does you feel that way when
right.
I was really, a decent wage for the work that's hard work.
Yeah.
And those guys are fantastic. And Paige has done a great job. I mean, that was, she had just married, she had twins, this business. I mean, not right at 27, I think it was like 28. All that going on, trying to manage all that, and so it was a lot.
Yeah.
But it was necessary. I bought a hog scalder that came over from Germany on a boat.
It's a hog scalder.
So before when we would harvest a hog, if you wanted it with the skin on it, they were dipping it in hot water like your great granddaddy did on the farm.
Yeah.
And it's not very efficient way of doing it, and so no one had a hog scalder in Middle Tennessee, to my knowledge. Other processing plants, large ones, of course, but not small family ones like we have. So that I brought the pigs to the farm. I'm gonna just plug that real quick. So the hogs, in order for them to be properly scalded, I needed a hog scalder, and at the time, like it was 2012, it was like $30,000. It's like, oh my god,
That's a lot of money.
Yeah.
So what does it do? Like,
so it takes the hair.
Obviously, it scalds them.
Yeah,
right.
Takes the hair off, so you can have, you can keep the head, you can keep the skin.
Right, yeah.
So it helps utilize the whole animal, which is huge for us, as opposed to not being able to keep that.
Right.
So we got that in, and this plant was tiny. And then the very first thing that we did after the hog scalder was enlarge the pens, where the farmers would come and unload, and livestock, you use gentle sweeps like Temple Grandin.
Yes.
They don't like these straight lines and dark places. So we had to remodel all that. That's what we did first.
Yeah.
So it made it easier for farmers, for the cattle, for the livestock, lamb, pigs, whatever, but particularly the cattle, to have more of a more natural way of moving through.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah.
So you move, obviously you eventually graduated into a bigger one, or
Well, we did that, during, the pandemic.
Yeah.
We were able to get they were offering some low interest loans, because we quickly learned there was a huge shortage. Farmers at that time were able to, there's no food at the grocery store. So let's get, we need to get our animals harvested so we can get meat out to the community. Well, you've got a processing plant like ours that is so small. It's not just the labor force, it's the room. We have to keep space between the animals so they can properly age, because we dry age everything, as opposed to large processors that wet age. So, you've got to have a lot of space to hang, a 800-pound carcass. So, we doubled the size of it, and we did that in 2020, 2021. I guess we started, took, forever, as you probably found out with building out a restaurant.
Everything takes longer.
It takes forever. But we also not only doubled the size of the cooler and I built a dry aging room prior to that. That was huge because we were working with chefs like of your caliber that wanted not just a 2-week dry aged product, we want 6 weeks.
Yeah.
And so our dry aging room was as big as our cooler. So that's like you were telling your buddies, like, you might as well, if you're going to do 2,000, you might as well.
Right. Yeah. Might as well stay a little bit
I did
bigger,
not compromise on the dry aging room. Yeah.
What is about your dry aging room that's such a distinct flavor? Because I've had other dry aged meat before, but there's something about Bear Creek Farms where it's very blue cheesy, it's very funky. We used to render the fat and brush it over vegetables because there's just an amazing flavor. So What do you have in that room
Well,
that's making the bacteria that's making it so delicious?
So we keep, and Wesley at Bare Bones kind of turned me onto this. We have a piece of meat in there that's been aging from like the beginning.
Like a starter of
Like
a
a
sourdough.
starter?
Yeah,
Exactly.
right? Yeah.
Yeah. And I also think that our beef has a distinctive taste. We do our own feed. We mix our own feed. And I think some of our components, like the distiller's grains and things like that, bring a distinct, and just the grasses that we grow, the rye, the wheat, the clover, the sumac, and sudac, I guess is what I mean to say. All those grasses, just give it it has just a bold flavor. So as it ages, I think it just, increases that.
So it starts with a good product.
I think it starts with,
and you put it into a dry aging room, just makes it a better product.
Makes it a better product, yeah. Because I think anytime you get it dry age, right, the enzymes break down, it opens it up, it just makes it beautiful.
It's like almost like a wine,
Yeah. Yes.
So you talked about the feed a little bit. What doesn't the public understand? Like everybody says, oh, you should eat grass fed, but basically grass fed beef, would it be that flavorful, or
no?
It's always like so the things that people hear is like grass fed, finished on grains, grain fed. Like what are the differences between all of that?
And for a long time, it was really confusing. It still is. I think there's a lot of misinformation.
Is it all just marketing?
A lot of it. I think there was a show, I can't remember, where they showed animals in feedlots. And it's like, well, the problem is they're standing in all this fecal matter. It's not that they're being fed.
Right.
It's that how they're being fed. And in where we live, so I don't want to disparage anyone, but the way they're raising their animals. We prefer a grain finish. When we started Bear Creek Farm, I would go to different farmers markets and buy beef because it's like I needed to know.
Yeah, of course,
we've got to be this good to be competitive.
Yeah, market research.
Yeah, that's right. We ate
at the market.
At the market.
Going to the markets for research.
And I did not care for strictly grass. I want to eat. My family eats this meat, so
it's lean, right?
It's lean, and it has. Sometimes you could taste the onion because we have a lot of spring onion.
Yes.
You taste that. There is studies that the omega factor is very similar to a grain and a grass fed, because let's face it. I mean, we put up 4,000 round bales of grasses to feed our animals. So the majority component of our feed is our grass that we're growing. But I just, I like the fat in the people that we worked with.
Is
like
it more
that.
expensive?
It's very expensive.
Which one is more expensive? You just fed them grain is more expensive?
Yeah, well, our grain is very expensive.
Yeah.
But also, if you're doing a grass-fed product, a grass-fed animal here in our climate, which you've lived here long enough, there's times that there's nothing. There's nothing. Yeah. And a farmer friend of mine, she would say, and I use her line, we feed our animals, and you can kind of read between the line. I mean, if you're going to grass an animal, it's going to take a long time for it to finish.
Right.
And so, do you want a 5-year-old skinny beef, or and there are people that are doing grasses and they do a great job. Sure. So I don't want to get into what I mean.
Yes,
but for us,
but for you
and for our market and for our family, we did what we liked. And Bill has worked with an animal nutritionist and a vet for years to fine tune our feed. And what's nice about doing our own feed, so that's another thing where we control our feed. We were buying it, from the feed store, and it would. There are some really good feed stores, but sometimes there'd be trash in it.
Yeah, like filler and stuff.
Yeah, or trash. Yeah. And it's not fresh. And we grind our feed every day, fresh. And so, we know exactly what's in it. And if we have to make any kind of tweak, like you can do with your menu, right? We need to back off of this. We need to do a little bit more this lot, and we do rotational grazing, regenerative farming. We move our cattle all the time through the land because we have to take good care of the land.
The land is the most important.
Yeah,
have you ever changed or manipulated or altered the feed, and then you realize that it's not as good as a product? And you have to change back? No. Well,
so when corn got to be so expensive, and it still is, it's upwards of $7 a bushel. Some people have to pay $8 for it because they have to grind. They have to buy it already ground. We met, our family, and we kind of have this philosophy of not compromising. And you know, we, I mean, we were doing some research. There's people using sweet potatoes. I mean, because you don't know. That was really scary times when food supply and supplies in general came to a halt. So since farming, we're in for the long haul. Our children do this, so we're not going anywhere.
Yeah, right.
So we want to keep an open mind.
You're not, well, we'll do this farming thing for a little bit, but what I really want to do is I want to be an actor.
Right, right. Well, I was going to be a vocalist, so I thought I'd sing a little.
We'll see how this goes, and maybe we'll catapult it. Yeah.
But yeah, we did not. I mean, we have not compromised, but yeah, like we feed at different stages. So there's different components that each, it's just like, think about a human, right? I mean, they're on milk. Cattle's on 8 months. They're on, they're nursing and they're eating grass. And then we offer them a little feed at time of weaning because it's a stressful time.
What feed? Does they start with grass then? Or
they're on grass. So they just pretty much are, mama's milk.
Yeah.
And then they start watching mom, and mom's eating hay and mom's eating grass, and they pick at it and pick at it. And then when we wean and we try to line wean, that means mom is on one side of the fence and baby's on the other. Yeah. So otherwise it can be very stressful on both. Then we put out just free feed. We just put some feed out, but it's a different component than what we're feeding, the ones that are 2 or 3 or 5 weeks or 2 months out from being harvested.
They'd be a little too hard on them.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah, just a little something to keep their nutrition up so they don't get sick or, they don't lose weight. So there's just different times throughout their life that their feed changes. And then as they start getting bigger and, we're looking at their growth and their structure, there's more feed. So as they move through the pastures and stuff, so does their nutritional.
And they figure it out.
Yeah, they figure it out.
So, I mean, I read a bunch of stuff. There's an argument, or was an argument, that like they shouldn't be eating grains because that's not what they naturally eat.
Well,
where did like cattle eating grains? Where did that come from? Because if you think about it, is it natural for them to be eating that, or?
I joke. I mean, have you ever seen a cow in a cornfield?
I don't think so.
Yeah, well, I have, and they love it.
And they love it.
Yeah,
okay.
It's a grass to them, and they just.
I mean, I grew up in a city, so if I see a cow, it would be amazing.
Yeah,
or a cornfield. I'd be like,
no, we see cow eating a pastrami sandwich.
Right.
So they're. And as, I mean, if you think about urbanization and people moving into, just sort of less
So it's not,
land.
what I guess it was getting, it's not unnatural for them to eat.
It's not
We're
unnatural.
not like feeding them something that they shouldn't be eating. We're not feeding like hamburgers or something.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
No.
Right.
Yeah, and that's where the problem came in.
Right, correct.
Is with mad cow.
With the mad cow.
That's correct.
Right. Yeah, they were feeding them ground up.
Yeah.
Gross.
Meat and gross.
Why would you think that'd be a good idea?
You'd be surprised. I guess I think you said, why do they think? I mean that. What happens in the large there are 4 or 5 huge processors that control our food.
Yeah.
And
have you seen them? I drove through Texas one time. And I stopped in the middle of, I don't know where the fuck I was, Texas. And I got out.
I think that's actually a town.
It's just smelled like manure.
Yeah.
And you look around and it's just like, as far as the eye can see, feedlots.
It's pretty
you can't see anything. It's dystopian.
Yeah.
You can't see anything else but feedlots. And the smell of manure and shit was just like, and gas was like 98 cents a gallon. And I'm like, where the fuck am I?
Yeah.
Like, where am I? I gotta get out of this town before they kill me. You know?
Yeah, you've been transported.
It was like Texas Chainsaw Massacre kind of thing. I was like, where? It was like stopped at a gas station. The only thing there was the gas station, and then just feedlots.
Just as far as I can see. Yeah.
Just like, and there, everything that I passed was like a truck with cattle coming or going.
Yeah.
And my car.
I get the FSID. I get the food safety alert, like. What's been recalled, I just find it.
Yeah,
it's like ugh.
It's rough.
And so if you think about the amount, so there's the feedlots and they're processed, and hundreds of thousands of animals, and all that ground is together. So that's the issue too, like where you get a mass recall for E. coli, and it's just. I don't know that how to make an answer to that because what we do is so small. I mean, we're honored we get to feed some folks in
You're a little
Nashville
local thing.
and some
Yeah,
folks
correct.
in Chattanooga, maybe Atlanta, small. And the ground beef that you get from our farm came from one steer. And of course, dry aging pretty much reduces the chance of E. coli as well.
Yeah.
So those huge feedlots, it's disturbing.
But how is there with the demand of beef throughout the world?
I know.
How is there a better way to do it?
I know. See,
it's just like it's a catch-22. It's like,
I know.
And it's
And to make it affordable.
and it's profit driven and make it affordable.
Yeah.
We're kind of like painted ourselves into a corner.
We really have.
Yeah.
We really have.
I think when you see something like that, it really you hear about it, you might see something on TV, a glimpse, but when you're there, when I was I felt so small.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like almost like helpless to wow, this is where the beef at Kroger
kind of hits you in the gut. Yeah.
It really does, man. And then it wasn't even that, as I kept driving and it was like a simulation. It's like they weren't moving. It was like my car was going 90 and it's like there was just more and more of them.
Yeah.
But it's like with the demand of the populations, with the demand of beef,
global,
it's kind of it makes me feel better about what we're doing locally.
Yeah.
You brought up a point about the pandemic of all these farmers were like, Kroger can't get the supplies for whatever reason, so everybody goes local, which is duh.
I know.
Like, this is what we should be doing.
I know. It was so poignant because, and I may not have I always say it was just Tuesday, March 12th, 2020, and it may have been March 14th, but we lost 80% of our business.
Man, it's crazy.
Because we worked with small independent restaurants, and those are the ones that were hit so hard during the pandemic. And I actually was in Atlanta doing a delivery. We worked with just a couple, small local restaurants there, and one of them closed on Instagram as I was going to deliver. And I went to another one that I didn't work with. I knew the buddy there. I'm like, can you use any of this? You can have it. And my son called, and it's just surreal because you're going, right? All the business plans in the world, we never prepared for this. It wasn't even in our vernacular. We didn't even know.
Why would it be?
We prepared what happens. Something happens to Bill. Something happens to LeeAnn. Water.
Cattle gets sick.
Cattle gets sick.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
No one shows up today.
Right.
We all need to know how to do every job on this farm.
There's no line for if we lose 80% of our business
no
because the economy shut down and there's a global pandemic.
Yeah.
It would have actually if you would have had that in there,
we just threw that page
pull out
away.
The pandemic plan. Here you go, Bear Creek's pandemic plan. I'd have been like, wow, that's pretty fucking good.
Yeah, right. We were just like everybody, what the hell?
Yeah.
And we opened the farm store, and we had people lined You've
up.
been to the farm. Lined down the street
Mm-hmm.
because there was no food.
Mm-hmm.
And even, this is what's so poignant, and I'll try not to tear up. I would see in the line the cooks that we've worked with, and those guys were out of work. When I say guys, I mean guys and gals. Those humans were out of work, and they were driving out to our farm to support us. Mm-hmm. It was like, wow, see, my eyes are teary. No, they can't see. I'm a radio.
Yeah, right.
Radio. I just dated myself.
Well, we got a camera right behind us.
And I was like, wow, isn't that something? The community.
It just comes back to community. It comes back to.
That's what you were saying. Supporting your local. If
something happens in your neighborhood, if something happens in your community, the community is there to support you.
That's correct.
And that's what community is.
Yeah.
And that's why, this is not a political podcast at all. We're not going to go there, but that's why you say you can't run a country like a business. It's not a business.
No.
A country and a city and a neighborhood and a county is a community.
Yeah.
And when something bad happens in the community, everyone's there to kind of lift you up, dust you off.
Yeah.
And even though we were all experiencing it, everybody did their little part.
We did.
I did the dinners at my house, and I was buying your beef, and you guys were delivering it. Sometimes I'd go pick it up. Lauren from Blueberry Farms was delivering me vegetables. The guys at Creation Garden allowed me to buy things from them without having a tax ID number or an account. They're whatever you need.
Yeah, and feeding the community.
And feeding the community.
Yeah.
And then people would come for dinner, and they'd be like, again, people were like emotional. We haven't been out in 6 months.
I
We
know.
haven't seen, this is my brother and I haven't seen him in 8 months.
Yeah.
And thank you for doing this.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this is not me. This is everybody. And every time I put a plate down, it was, this is from so-and-so's farms. These greens are from Tom Maddox. This is from here. This is from there. And it was everything that I was cooking was almost basically as local as I could get it, because that's what people were saying.
It takes you a few more phone calls to do that.
Yes.
But gee, you keep Bear Creek Farm, Bloomsbury Farm,
Beaver Creek.
Yeah,
right. All of it.
Continue to farm. And that's like, it's so important. If I don't know that people really get it. Like when you support local chefs that really support local farming, I'm not talking about buried down in page 2 and one carton and egg, that support them like you do and other chefs in Nashville. Honestly, and I'm not trying to sound maudlin, it is a difference between keeping a farm and not keeping a farm.
Correct.
So, I mean, and I think during the pandemic, Bill and I talked about it we took for granted, right? Oh, we can just come and go have dinner at your place.
Right.
Or, half a dozen places that we work with. And we're at the farm, we're tired, we get to drive to Nashville. And then we were like, going, oh my gosh, I'm not going to let that happen.
Right.
And like some folks, you could go by and they would put the food in your car. And I was like so excited. Just to see
your friends,
see my friends, see my
friends.
friends again, and that they were slugging it out, that we were all helping each other too.
Yeah.
And what you said, it is a community.
It's amazing to see a human being be put under such a stress test.
Yeah.
And see how people react. And, unfortunately, some people had a hard time and they're still having a hard time.
Yeah.
And other people were rise to the occasion. I'm going to do this. We'll figure something out. I think it's like a restaurant industry thing of, you put a chef into a room with no equipment at all and they'll figure out how to make a 5-course meal.
Yeah.
Well, there's a toaster and there's a hot plate. Like, no problem. I got this, Yeah.
Like, it's amazing.
Right.
And I know talking to some of the chefs, like, we started, we didn't have any retail presence other than the Franklin Farmers Market. And
you did it. That was it.
Well, Bare Bones, Butcher Shop, and Main Street Meats Butcher Shop. And you can't go to any, we weren't in any grocery store.
The guys at Bare Bones are awesome.
Oh my God.
I love that place.
Well, they saved our ass. Like, just so did the community that came out to support us.
Yeah.
Because people, they did it smart. They stayed open, thankfully. And you call and they'd have your stuff together, and they had closed because it got bad. And they have families and stuff, but they like you said, it was like the hot pot and the toaster. They figured out a way to continue getting food to their guests, to the community. And chefs that never went to culinary school or learned from from their grandmama's knees, because there's both, to put their fine food in a box and put it in your car. But they did, because they wanted to continue feeding people.
It's all we know how to do.
Yeah.
And take that away.
I cannot tell you how many people, like even my stepmom, who would go and pick up pizzas and stuff from some of the restaurants that were doing that. And it would like, oh, thank God, just to have this level, this caliber of food. And people want to support them. And that was tough. But, in Nashville, think about, I don't know how many, I know that few did close, but wow, we had a good bit survive.
I actually thought,
I'm really proud of that.
Nationwide, I thought it was going to be a lot worse.
Me too.
When it first started, obviously it was a worst case scenario. And the people that I was talking to was, if you want to open a restaurant, just wait. You're going to have your pick of the litter, all these places and equipment, and it's going to be, dollars, cents to dollars.
Pennies,
you could just go in, you're going to be able to buy this place for $5 and it's all, and I was like, holy shit, is this really going to happen? And then it didn't. And I was very happy that it didn't.
Yeah.
Everybody kind of figured it out. Everybody made it work. And it's very commendable to the places that didn't lay anybody off.
Oh,
kept their entire staff.
I agree.
From an owner's point of view, I have an owner's point of view now, it's like, man, that's hard. It's got to be hard. And you just dig down, you figure out a way how to make sure that everybody has some sort of paycheck or can stay safe and still be busy.
Yeah. A lot of respect for that, for sure.
Yeah. I think there was a lot that everybody learned from the pandemic. So.
Yeah.
So now you have a storefront. Now you have the storefront is like part of your business.
It's part of our business.
Yeah.
We have a little, in fact, Wednesday, of course, I'm not sure when folks, so it's this Wednesday, but it's every Wednesday. Grant has been working on the new farm store, and it opens. We've been selling meat out of our dairy barn on the farm. You've been there,
yes.
And it's worked. And but now we've got a cute little store, and Ben White's made some really cute, nice, wood pieces for us, and so yeah, that's evolved.
Right.
So it kind of pivoted. And Franklin Farmers Market was great. I mean,
that's your bread and butter, though, right?
That's our bread and butter. Yeah. For retail, other than the butcher shops who have been great. That's the only farmers market we do now.
Yeah.
And then the little retail store, and it's funny, we still have not to the level that the people were coming when there wasn't anything at Kroger, but we've picked up new business and still have loyal customers that come out. They can't make it Saturday for whatever reason, just soccer, or they've got to work.
Yeah, life.
They have an option. Life. They have an option just to come out to the farm, and some people prefer coming out to the farm.
Right.
Yeah. So yeah, we got the little farm store and it's plugging along.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Let's go back to feed for a second, because something popped up that I saw a couple weeks ago that I've been meaning to ask you about. I saw a TikTok video, so it's got to be true.
It's sure, absolutely, yeah.
And it was this woman was saying, "Oh my God, do you know what they're feeding cattle? They're feeding them Skittles." I don't know if you saw this or not.
I didn't. I don't have TikTok unless Paige or my kids
I'll
send
find it. And I don't have TikTok either, because I'm
Yeah.
afraid that China's, looking at everything that I do, and it's probably the American government. But it came up on another social media platform. So this woman said, they're feeding our cattle Skittles and blah, blah, blah. And then it cut to a farmer who was saying, well, that is true. Like, Skittles has X amount of things that they can't put into the bag, so they sell them as feed. And it's basically a carbohydrate for the cattle.
Yeah.
And we're not just feeding them Skittles all day. It's mixed into everything that we're doing, but basically it's a carbohydrate, it's a sugar carbohydrate.
It's a sugar, which they have to have.
Right. So I thought that.
Yeah, so
Basically what I'm asking is what candy bars are you feeding?
Snickers. We don't feed candy bars.
But
now,
in your world, that's not out of the ordinary, right?
Look, they have a nutritional need, just like she's probably okay. Shouldn't say, but maybe her 2-year-old's eating Skittles too, and that's okay.
Right.
But they have to have a certain amount of carbohydrates. They have to have a certain amount of fiber. Yeah. That's part of their diet. And I have processed with farmers at the processing plant that have fed pigs. One farmer, because I called him, I said, "This is a gorgeous." He and his daughter raised a handful of hogs. And I said, "Your hog is gorgeous." I said, "What did you feed him?" And they went and got day-old pastries.
No kidding.
From, the grocery store.
Yeah.
And that's not something you would want to just solely feed because of the amount of sugar.
Right.
But,
that's what this farmer was saying.
That's what this,
it's not shovels full of Skittles in their mouth.
Right, because that's not going to work. But if you want to add treats, our mama pigs and the boar, they get treats. We have orchards at the Williamsport farm, and that's a little bit different. But yeah, sometimes they've had a Twinkie to load up into the cattle trailer, but it's not, they're just feeding them.
Yeah, right.
I think that's where you hear something. In fact,
it's blown out of proportion.
There's a term that's used even for like the, organic corn that's used into your chips, your tortilla chips. My kids make fun of how I say that. That they sell those pieces that don't make the cut into the chip, and they call it trash. Okay, so when you say that, like when I said it earlier, you think it's, paper towels and SOS pads and stuff, but it's just they call it's the stuff that's not usable for the chip. Right. Well, cattle farmers buy that all day long. It's organic corn. And it's a little.
What does it matter if it's a dehydrated piece of corn in the form of a chip?
Yeah. So
as long as it's not nacho cheese flavor, I guess. Right?
That's true. Yeah, because we'd eat those. But I think with any of the information, you need to just kind of delve into it before you just jump in to think, okay, they're just feeding them Skittles. Well, one, that would be very cost prohibitive.
Yeah.
Then I would.
And then they're gonna want guacamole and
then
salsa.
and
then you
then
got a whole set of
gonna,
problems now. You know.
Yeah, and
next
soft
week you go to Bear Creek
drinks.
Farms. They got all like little sombreros on.
I almost want to have some empty Skittle packages around just for you.
You're pretty avid about not shipping to California or shipping to chefs in New York.
No, and I don't have a problem with it. In fact, we did pivot.
Is it logistics?
It's the cost of shipping. So that's one thing that Grant did start with the during the pandemic. We were shipping.
You were shipping ground beef.
Yeah,
right?
well, we had ground beef. I mean, our inventory isn't such that I can just take
that. Also, like I'd be pissed if I came and you're like, "Oh no, we shipped everything to New York."
Yeah,
and like,
yeah. I mean, we run into that anyway. Like, well, I guess why don't you have any ribeyes? Is fill in the blank, getting all your ribeyes. Yeah. But we had ground beef. We had breakfast sausage. We were doing those family packs. I don't remember.
Yeah, I saw they were dope. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't have a family, so I can never order them.
Yeah. Well, your family of one.
I did.
Works.
I would just eat it myself.
Yeah. We were shipping some, and the cost of shipping, and I was like. But then, of course, I'd looked at Goldbelly, and it's like, okay, people actually will spend $100 to get 4 burgers. And we were doing some of that. But to ship for, like, restaurants and things, like for your family, you wanted us to send some things to Chicago to your mom or whatever, we can do that.
Different. Yeah, that's completely different.
But we just...
Like every week, a restaurant in LA needs X, Y, and Z.
Right. And we did, we were called out there to meet with a restaurant group early on in Bear Creek Farms' career. And, most communities have a good local farmer to work with, and it just wasn't sustainable. Sure. You think about it.
I mean, it's a lot of logistics.
Yeah, we did out of town before the pandemic. We did a pretty robust out of town delivery route, and that is one thing that did go away for us. Fuel, labor,
fuel,
and then they closed. So we did start working with the Evans Meat in Birmingham, and they do Atlanta for us. And they've picked up, I worked with a butcher in New Orleans that they took a beef to. They don't do Nashville. We still do our own deliveries in Nashville, but that's worked out really well. So that was something that we did, have to cut out of our delivery. Just,
Right.
At the end of the day, if you're losing money doing something, you're not going to be in business very long. So
good point.
Yeah.
You raise cattle and you raise pigs.
That's it.
Hogs.
Yeah.
And that's it. Why not raise chickens?
Well,
why
I did try chicken. Yeah? Oh, I love lamb.
It? I love lamb too. You sent me some lamb one time for a special dinner that we were doing, and it came from another farm. It was some of the best lamb.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So I'll plug Palmer Farms.
Yeah.
He's doing lamb. He does a wonderful job. He worked with us at the processing plant, and now he's been able to segue out of that and full-time farm.
Great.
We also get the 4-H farm lamb, and it is amazing because they're loved and petted and fed so well. So in the fall, we usually get about 20 of those, and normally I'll just sell those whole, or we'll process a few for the family and for the farmers market. But he pretty much. He's doing a great job with lamb. And we tried chickens for a little bit. Honestly, the only time I had sick pig was when I had chickens. You've got to keep chickens and pigs separate. If you're homesteading and you have a couple chickens and
it's
different.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of stuff that comes with raising chickens.
The chickens are hard to work with.
They are.
Attitude problems.
Yeah, I mean, we're going to get a couple layers just, for eggs for the family. But, we have dialed in, particularly the genetics. It's taken a long time. We've got, like you, we don't ever rest on our laurels, right? You're always thinking of improving and how we can make it better, how we can have a better product. And we do a small garden, but I see like more for us, it would be agritourism.
Right.
Would be something that we could add to the farm to add value without having to raise more animals.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah, just come out and hang out.
No one does veal.
No, and somebody reached out to me about veal. See, for us, we need to raise our animals to be big.
Correct.
Dairies, a lot of times you can find a veal.
So wouldn't you like talk with like Hatcher Dairy and be like, hey, we'll take your and
Yeah.
raise them for veal, or what is
Well,
it?
so
Is it
he
still a stigma, you think, or
with some people, but I mean, dairies aren't going to use their
male
steers,
yeah,
right? So they can either feed them out, and Dr. Hatcher does that, and has ground beef at his farm, and you can buy beef off his farm, or you can have a veal.
Yeah.
So that's what I usually recommend when chefs reach out. It's like, well, let's check with some of the local dairies and see what they have, because that's more in line of what they do than for us.
Than what you would do.
Yeah, because we just like even with the hog, I don't do suckling pigs.
Yeah.
They're you've seen them.
Yeah, right.
They're big.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's just an area of farming that someone else could do if they wanted
Like
to.
a suckling pig would be like another layer of like attention and
Well, it would be also, I mean, from a price point, Ryan, I mean, I'm going to feed a lot more people with a 300-pound pig than a suckling pig. And, that's Alex and Grant's dinner. So that's something we just didn't. We'll do roasters. You want to have a roast, 150-pound pig.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. On the spit. We'll do that for sure. For guys we work with, that's always fun. But yeah, veal's hard to find. That would be, an opportunity for a young farmer that's a business plan or something that they could. Plus, you wouldn't need as much land.
Sure. Young farmers, if you're listening,
we have to grow more young farmers. I've said that a few times, and I'm serious. If we don't grow some young farmers, we've got, we have another generation with our children, and then we have grandchildren. But you want them to do what they love. Yeah. We just tell them it's going to be farming.
Listen, you can do anything you
want.
Anything,
honey. Anything, but you'll be doing farming.
Where do antibiotics and steroids come into play? Well, in your world and in the world of like large agriculture. Right.
So we don't use antibiotics. If we have a sick animal and we have to use antibiotics, then it's taken out of the Bear Creek Farm Program.
Correct. Right. Yeah.
Luckily, we, I think a lot of it, if you have a really good farming techniques and you've got lots of, we do 2 acres for a cow-calf. The industry standard is 1. So they've got lots of space, and the water, the fresh water, we talked about that. But it can happen,
Like how does an animal how would that happen? How does an animal get sick? They don't get sick like we do. Or, I got take 2 days off and then come back, right?
Yeah, I'm going to take sick leave.
Take a sick day.
Yeah, right. And I still want to be paid.
Yeah, right.
So for animals, say we have a calving in the winter, and say calf is born in the weather gets warm and then it gets really cold, or it starts to rain and the weather gets super cold. They can get pneumonia. I mean, just like, they can get a cold.
How do you watch for that?
We check the herd a couple of times a day.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Especially during
calving
season.
You're always monitoring everything. Yeah. Especially in winter then.
Looking at every one of them. Because, you can get stuff with flies. I mean, we have flies out here, so you just have to watch. So yeah. Or they can, sometimes, in childbirth, the mother may not make it. And so then you have a bottle-fed calf. And when I first started farming with Bill, I was like, oh, I've got a baby. And he's like, the mama can do a better job. And a little offended, like, well, wait a minute. He's absolutely right, So a bottle-fed calf can get scours. You've probably heard that on Yellowstone.
Yeah. That was another TikTok that I heard.
Yeah. From Too Much Skittles.
Yeah, right. From the Skittle lady.
So it can happen, especially if you have a large herd. And you can use B12 and things like that to boost their immune system naturally. Pedialyte,
yeah.
That kind of thing. What you do with a little kid, same kind of thing. But that's the sad part of farming. When you lose an animal, and especially when at childbirth, calf birth, I guess I should say, birthing, because you've waited 9 months. Gestation is 9 months, just like in humans, and then it takes us 3 years to get a beef harvested if you count the 9 months gestation. And
wow, how much planning is that?
Yeah. So with genetics, that's the thing. Like, you don't really know, because we have, what we're looking for. There's charts that you can look at when you're buying semen, or if you're doing AI program for some ranches that do that.
Yeah, when me and Preston buy semen, we're always looking for it. Yeah,
you are.
right,
You're
yeah,
looking
right,
for
yeah.
you're looking for the marbling.
Right, yeah.
But that you don't, it's when you harvest it and you bring it home and you're like, yeah. And we keep a really good eye on that. That's one thing, at the farm, having Paige at the processing plant. When something comes in that's like, whoa, we can check and go, okay, it was this bull and this mom. That's a good combination. And that bull, we buy bulls.
Oh, so you're keeping data.
Oh, yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
Like logbooks.
Yeah.
Huh?
And Alex does that. All the cattle
plant
ranks.
comes in, you crack into it, and you're like, this is a prize ribeye right here.
Yeah.
Holy cow. So then you go back to the data and say, okay, Fred and Luis, we got to keep these two together.
That's correct. Yeah.
Amazing.
Well, see, Fred probably has been, they can service like 30 head, 30 girls. And so he, on the bull side, we pretty much know what we've dialed in the genetics, because that's what we buy bulls based on a certain markers. But on the heifers, when Bill and Alex go through the herd and pick our heifers, that's more just their expertise in looking for what their like physical traits. So yeah, it's nice when it's like, okay, that was a huge home run. And then conversely, if we have something that comes through, and luckily we have some customers that like a lean product too, so we can move that. But all in all, we have over the past 16 years, 17 years, really dialed in the genetics, and that's just with time and trying to really push the envelope on those bulls that we get. We have bought some really high dollar bulls. I mean, like, that's been our Christmas, our birthday, and anniversary gifts to each other. It's like,
it's another thing that I learned
bull.
from Yellowstone.
Yeah.
Do you actually go to like the auctions? It's like an auction in a car.
Yeah.
And you see the bloodline of where they're from, and everything about. It's like having baseball cards.
It
right?
is so, like, I get so nervous.
Really?
Bill's so calm.
God, I would love to go with you.
Oh, you should.
Yeah. Next time, I would love to go.
Yes.
That's a whole world to me that I didn't even know existed.
It is a whole world.
Yeah.
And you talk about cowboys, the real McCoy.
Big time, huh? Yeah.
Not like big hat, no cattle. These guys had to back me up, as I say. Cowboys are there, and see, we've already studied the book, so we already have marked the ones that we want.
Yeah.
And then you're just waiting to see if you can play.
If you get into
it's like
bidding wars.
Yeah. I mean, because we know, like,
so
we have
cool.
a price that we can only go to.
Of course.
And and it's happened to where, like, Bill will go, because sometimes they're out west. Most of them are. And I, he'll like have the book, and I'm like, I really want that one. I really want that one. If you can get this one, I'll make it work. I'll make it work.
Please.
Yeah.
Like you're buying diamonds or pearls or something.
Yeah. Like, don't even bring home diamonds. Bring me home the bull. But he, and I know, like, it's worked. Like, it's like, wow, we ended up getting that one. Then on the other hand, it hasn't. It just went way more than what we can afford. $100,000 bull we can't do. Yeah. But yeah, they're fine. We should do it. We'll get you. You got to wear a cowboy hat.
I got to wear a cowboy hat. Yeah. I got to probably buy a whole outfit.
Ensemble.
The last thing I want to look like is some city slicker coming in trying to buy some bulls.
Yeah, and I'm always afraid. I'll do like this. Sold. Remember? Sold.
I just cough, and all of a sudden, like, sorry, Bill, we got this. Why did you buy a goat? Ryan coughed.
I know. Yeah, we've got goats now. Oh, I've wanted goats. Are they the babies, or are they not the cutest things?
Yeah. You do goat yoga on the farm.
Yeah, I know. Well, the nobles do that. You should do it. It's great.
Right on.
Yeah, you do yoga. That'd be fun.
Yoga.
Yeah.
Well,
next time you go to, come out. I'll take you. Have you been to the farm?
I have been, yeah.
Yeah.
We were shooting guns.
Well, you've been to mine. I know. I know you mentioned that on the. I can cover up the mic. Yeah, it was fun. Target shooting.
Target shooting.
But no, the goat cheese. They're our neighbors, and they do goat yoga. So I say, next time you come to see my farm, I need to take you over there.
100%.
Yeah.
Let's talk about Bill for a little bit.
Let's do. Isn't he great?
Bill is a typical, I'd call him a cowboy. He's a typical farmer.
Yeah.
But he's just a salt of the earth type of person.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say he has a big tough guy. He's not a tough guy. He's super approachable.
Yeah.
But he's kind of a softie, no?
Yeah.
He's a
yeah.
softie, right?
Yeah. So, he comes across, right,
stoic. I was stoic.
and-
Yes, stoic.
Yes. He comes from a family of stoic. And very even-keeled.
Extremely even-keeled.
So we're yin and yang there. And great in like when there's like everything's going to hell in a handbasket or whatever, he's just solid. He's just solid. Yeah. But he's a softie. He we'll be watching a sad movie and I'll hear him, he's gonna kill me.
Poor Bill.
But I mean he's got a big heart.
It's a huge heart.
Huge heart. I mean, anybody in our community, if they need anything, they know.
Everybody knows you guys.
Yeah.
Everyone in the Nashville surrounding area knows.
I mean, we've had such wonderful support from the community as well that, I mean, giving back. I mean, dude, really at the end, I just called you dude. Mike Boys would be so proud. Dude. I mean, you do the same thing. I mean, it's like when you can help people out, it's like at the end of the day, that's what's awesome.
So does he come from a long line of cattle farmers then, or how did he
actually,
get started?
His grandfather. So when there's like 4 generations. Bill's father's father farmed, and in Nolensville.
Okay.
And Bill's father, he was in auto parts business.
Wow.
And self-made businessman, brilliant, and started buying maybe 35 years ago now. But I had a farm, and his father farmed, but he was like what you would call, like, I don't want to call it a gentleman farm. Like, he worked hard and grew a business, but always the land and a farm resonated with him, but not as his main livelihood. So when he retired, but he started really delving into more the farming, but they had the farm. He bought land up in Williamson County 35 years ago. Now we cannot farm in Williamson County now. Like, we have a farm in Williamsport in Murray County.
Why not? Just because
it's $75,000 an acre. I mean, something silly. Not all of it, but yeah. When I said you can run if we run one a cow calf on 2 acres, I can't. Jesus. It doesn't. Yeah. So we're so blessed that we had that land, and I know how special that is, and it's important to me that we take such good care of it. Because he worked really, really hard and helped us so much to get Bear Creek Farm started. Now my eyes are watering because he's not here anymore. So he was very proud of what we built.
You should be.
Yeah.
You should be proud of what you built.
I'm
proud of what you built.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I am proud of it. I am proud. We've worked hard and, tried not to miss many of the football games or daughter's stuff, but, it happens. And that whole work-life balance, that's a whole podcast in itself. But when you're working, building something for you and your family,
correct. It just pays off.
It does.
More. It feels better to mop the floor or to stay late or to open up early, that you know that you own it.
Yeah. Yeah. And you're building something.
What do you think you'd be doing if you didn't meet Bill?
Oh, that's a good question. Since I wasn't raised in farming, it wasn't something that I'd be like, I always in the back of my mind wanted to raise hogs. I mean, in fact, if you told me I was going to do that when I was 32, I would have said, well, you've lost your damn mind. Yeah. I've got a BMW and suits and I'm going. But boy, it's been the most intrinsically rewarding work I've ever done. I enjoyed the marketing and advertising. I really enjoyed that and creating that kind of thing. So maybe I would have,
went down that road.
I would continue down that road because that's where I was when I met him. I'm sure thankful that I was able to, at 42, I changed careers. So I like to tell people that, even my children, it's like, hey, this, you've always done this. If you want to do or try something else, you have to come back though. No. Or people who think, I'm whatever, 42 or 57. I can't.
You could do any time you want. I am living proof that you can do anything you want whenever you want. You just have to make the pivot, commit to it, make sure that you're doing the right thing for the right reasons.
Right. Make sure you're doing it for the right
You know,
reasons.
talk to your family and figure it out. I'm living proof that you can, reinvent yourself as much as you want, as many times as you want.
Yeah. And I think you're right. Surround yourself with people who believe in you, or even you take constructive criticism and listen to people, that have done it, that gone before you. And
we're doing it.
We're doing it.
We're doing it. Let's end it on that.
Yeah.
If people want to find Bear Creek Farms, where should they go?
Yeah. So, of course, the website, bearcreekbeef.com. Come visit us at the Franklin Farmers Market. Every Saturday we're there. The hours are going to be 8 to 1. And our farm store in Thompson Station, our little farm store.
Highly recommend going to the
Come
farm
to the
store.
farm store and hang out. Grant cooks burgers sometimes, and we've got a gentleman that's coming. He's remodeled an Amish wagon. He's going to do some snow cones, and
Amazing.
you can bring your kids. They can run around the farm or your dogs or whatever.
Right
Just come out and support these local chefs
Support
like Ryan.
local as much as you can.
Yeah.
When I first moved to Nashville, you and Bill were so kind to me. You were one of the first people, along with Lauren from Bloomsbury Farms, that welcomed me into the community, welcomed me into the restaurant that I was working at, and we've been great friends ever since. And I just want to thank you for all the support and advice and friendship that you've given me, and it's really great.
Well, I feel the same. And watching your career, I'm so proud of you.
Thank you.
And all the fun stuff, all your traveling and that you're home. And I know
I'm
your
back.
mom
Now
would
I'm home.
probably be mad that I said that, but
I think she's just happy that we're happy doing what we want to do.
She is.
She would like it better if we were in Chicago, I think.
Yeah.
But I think that she knows that we're doing it together.
Well, she listens to these, I'm sure, and I want to let her know that he's well loved here.
Thank you.
So he's in good hands.
Right on. It was amazing sitting down with you.
Yeah, thank
Please
you. This
tell
was
everyone
fun.
that we said hello.
Yeah, we'll do. Give your brother a hug.
I definitely will.
Yeah.
I'll bring him to the market and you can give him a hug yourself. How's that?
Perfect.
Very good.
More better, as they say where I live.
Thank you, LeeAnn Cherry.
Thank you, Ryan.